All right, hello everyone. My name is Anthony. I am an art student at a school known as Studio Incaminati in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Today we're going to go over the front torso anatomy. It's been a couple weeks since I've done an anatomy live, so I'm happy to be getting back into it. And like I said, we're going to do the front torso. So this includes the pectoralis muscles, the abdominal, and the obliques, as well as the front of the shoulders. So to get us started, we're going to go head first. So we covered the pectoralis a couple of times already. So these bones in here, right in there, this is your collarbone, or otherwise known as the clavicle. We're going to call it the clavicle today. And this is the top insertion point of the pectoralis. So the pectoralis is going to attach at about the 1/3 mark of the clavicle. So right about there. It's going to attach here at this point. So this is known as your sternum. Yeah, so the pectoralis attaches up here and will come underneath where the deltoid is and attach itself to this part of the humerus. And that's just outside where the shoulder or the deltoid will attach. So they're right by each other. So that pectoralis comes in here. And the bottom of that pectoralis will come around. And the reason why it comes around is because the bicep muscle is under here. So it has to like rotate or lay itself around. And then it'll attach right around here on the rib cage. And this side of the pectoralis will attach itself to the sternum. It goes all the way up. And there's a little bit of a twist in the muscle here. It's right about there. And this part of the muscle is known as the clavicular head of the pectoralis, meaning that it attaches to the clavicle. And then the major sternal head here is the rest of it. And the reason why it's called that is because it attaches to the sternum here. Same thing for the other side. It'll attach at the same points. Right around here. It'll go around, attach itself there. It'll come around over the bicep, attach itself here. Just about. And this will be that attachment point on the sternum. And I'm going to go ahead and erase the rib cage just to show it a little clearer. The reason I draw the skeleton is just to show the underlying foundation of the muscles, where they attach, how they interact with your body. That's the attachment there of the clavicular head. This will come around, attach itself there. Yay. Attachment point on the rib cage. Yep, there. This is where your pectoralis will attach. Now your deltoid is right on the other side of that attachment to the pectoralis. And because it's right here, it'll come around that acromion process and wrap itself over and in. Remember, there are 3 heads of the deltoid, this being the anterior, the front facing, this one here being the medial, the middle, and then there's a posterior behind that attaches to the scapula. Same thing here. Same thing here. Attachment points. It'll come around, wrap itself around, attaches just in front. You have that other head there. And this is your pectoralis in here. So there are these little muscles that come out here in front of, really it's like tucked behind the pec a little bit, and it protrudes from behind the lat, because the lat only like comes around here, so you can barely see it. But there are these muscles known as your serratus muscles, and they attach from the back of the scapula, and they wrap around to the front of the rib cage, and it's about like the top 8 or 9 ribs, so like all the way like around here. Let's double check that. I have my stuff in front of me right now, so it goes like down here. Now this isn't the shape of them, this is just like where their attachment points are. What they do is they wrap around, so they'll like come around and attach. They'll like come around and attach. And the way that their pattern is, it's like if I were to erase this and just like show the outer skin, the way you'll see that it's like this almost staircase kind of look right in there. And that's because they're intertwining with the oblique that sits underneath them. And then the oblique will like come out. So they'll like come down a little bit. And just put the markers for the bottom of that rib cage there. So they'll come down. They'll attach themselves to the ribs. Right. Now the lat will come a little bit behind and attach itself somewhere around here. Remember, the bicep comes out, so you can like see it just barely there. And the oblique kind of intertwines here with the serratus. That's why you get that staircase look, because they're like the serratus is coming out this way and the oblique is going back in behind. So you'll get that kind of staircase look, right? But ultimately, the oblique will come out and wrap itself. The oblique is kind of interesting because it creates this wall almost. It'll like just go down here and will attach itself to the pectoralis here. And it'll like create this wall of aponeurosis in there. And that's just like very thick, hardened fibers of the muscles. That's just, the same goes for this side. So you have those serratus muscles that come in here and attach themselves, right? And then the oblique that goes back in. You have the lat that kind of comes out here, serratus, and then the oblique that will attach itself to the pelvis. This is the front of the pelvis here. So like it kind of like splits down the middle, comes up this way. That's where the oblique will attach to the front of that pelvis. You have other muscles that connect to the legs that will attach around the same points that the oblique attaches, but that's for another time. And right about here, you get this nice little abdominal wall. That's where the aponeurosis starts. And that's just like hardened fibers. Let's go ahead and erase that so we can clear it up for ourselves. So we got this whole section in here, which is where the oblique is. You have the pectoralis in here. These seem like long pecs, to be honest. They're kind of long, so I'm gonna shorten them up. Kind of tall. Just a little bit. There's a long torso here. But those serratus muscles, I think they go back a little bit more, like down this way. So it's fine. So the oblique is, so the oblique will like wrap itself around from the back, just like that. That's the direction that they're going. And you have this little space of aponeurosis. This whole space in here is aponeurosis. That's like very hardened fibers, right? But above that, you have the rectus abdominis. And they will attach actually underneath the pecs at first. There's a rib that they attach to, and they'll come down this way. And in between, they'll have like little aponeurosis that separates them. You'll have one in the middle all the way down that separates the two sides there. And the way that they're set up is you'll get that aponeurosis coming in here, right? You have 4, 6, and then the 2 here will actually go all the way down to the middle of the pelvis. Just like that. So like these are the bottom of your abdominis, or rectus abdominis, and they're the longest. So they'll cover all that. And what the pelvis and these abs do, the pelvis sits like this bucket that's tilted toward you. And they hold all of your organs in there. So it just kind of like sits in the bucket, and the obliques come in and create this wall that protects them, and the abs kind of just like protects them vertically there. The little wrap around. So the whole purpose of these muscles is not just to give you like torque and tension and twist and turns, but they sit there to protect your organs that's right underneath as well. And your muscles are very strong. They're very strong. It's important that you develop them. So they're sitting up here underneath pectoralis and your abs. Your deltoids over here. And of course, let's not forget your biceps that will attach up here and bring themselves down. But we don't have to articulate completely. You just cut them off a little bit. Woo! Because we're not focused on the arms today. All right, just to review a little bit. You have here. Let's clear this up. You have your deltoids, and they will attach themselves to the humerus inside. There's 2 heads of the deltoid. Same thing over here. Comes around. Here, let's get rid of that. And that part right here of your collarbone where it tucks down and wraps around to the back, that's known as your acromion process. So that's your arm. You have the lat that's just barely visible back here. And it comes down. Your serratus that is in here. And that oblique that comes out or wraps all the way down to the pelvis or wraps around to the front. And they'll attach themselves in this direction here, all the way wrapping to the back. And we'll go over the back view next week. Then we can go over the side view after that. These little marks represent aponeurosis. Because not all your muscles intertwine with each other. Some of them create that fiber that holds them in place. So, now comes the fun part. Where's my sharpener? There it is. So the anatomy of the torso is pretty simple. There's a lot of big shapes in there that will inform us of the anatomy here. So from like shoulder to shoulder, right? All the way down to the bottom of the rib cage, which is right about here. That creates one big box. Granted, the perimeter of that box isn't, it doesn't contain the entirety of the anatomy, right? You see the shoulders pop out from the corners of those boxes, but the corners are representative of where the acromion process is. So those are very important landmarks you can rely on whenever you're drawing or sketching the figure. You can use that box to tell you how wide your rib cage is, where those points meet, and you can use them to be descriptive of the rest of your anatomy as well. So if I wanted to find that, I would go based off the acromion, and the acromion often can tell you a point further along the body, like maybe down at the foot or something, right? But in this case, we're just getting the landmarks. And the same thing with the pelvis here. So the pelvis is also a bit of a box. It's a smaller box for men. Sometimes it's wider for women. It's usually wider for women. But the acromion will tell you different landmarks based off that box here. And the wide points of the pelvis can tell you the proportions of that too. And often people draw the bottom half of the torso in this like trapezoid shape. And what that is the top of the pelvis are those two landmarks there. And these points here are where the great trochanter hits. That's that little bone that pokes out from your hip. It's not the side of the pelvis. It's this bone that connects. And that's an important landmarker for the body as well. But I tend to do the box instead of the trapezoid, is it covers this landmark really well. And I just keep in mind, like, hey, the bone is going to come out. And there's like a little shadow shape usually that happens whenever you see the great trochanter on a standing pose. So we'll go ahead and erase that. I probably shouldn't have erased that, but that's fine. That's fine. So now that we have the muscles lined out and we have them placed, we can take a look at how their direction can cause different effects on the surface of the skin, right? So this is our deltoid, and they attach here. Now this one protrudes because this is our acromion process. It'll protrude here and wrap itself down, and this insertion point goes underneath the bicep muscle and where the tricep meets the bicep. So it will tuck in, and often if the light is coming from here, it'll create this little dimple in the skin, so there'll be a little bit of shadow in there. But we know that the deltoid comes out over and under. And that creates a specific shape. That creates this like little curved shape. And the deltoid wraps from this side as well. Often, I tend to see this in more muscular men, where the deltoid will actually, like when it attaches and it goes out, over and under, here it'll like come down at a slant, and then it'll kind of just jerk itself down and come down here, creating this more boxy look. And that's because the muscles of the pectoralis and the shoulders are both more developed. And that creates this like hill on the body that pushes it out and creates more descriptive or defined muscular work. And we have that opposite head there. This is where the pectoralis attaches. I didn't label anything today. I'm a little off my game. It's been a rough day. It's been a rough day. This is where it attaches down here. And the same thing here. And then we turn to the sternal head. Thank you for all the likes, guys. I appreciate that a lot. Remember, this is the clavicular head. We'll come around. Same thing here. Oop, excuse me. Same thing here. And we'll go ahead and draw those attachment points of the deltoid here as well. And then because it wraps around the bicep, it'll create this turn in there and then come down. There's no attachment points here in this line. It's just the muscle going up and attaching to that humerus bone. And then you have your lat in there. It kind of just sits, and the lat will attach itself to behind the humerus there. You have your serratus muscles that will interweave with the with the oblique there. All right, and then your oblique comes down. And the reason why there's no attachments over here is because it's wrapping around the body. So this is that edge where the form turns. And right here is where you start your aponeurosis. I'm actually just gonna, I think I'm gonna leave it like that. Just like the edge of the muscle where it attaches. But the pencil marks there, those are the, oh shit. That's where the form turns in here. Comes down. And remember, that attaches to the front of that pelvis in here. This is where that attachment is. And this is where bottom of the rectus abdominis. Right. And attaches this way as well. And these will, even though they have these like attachments on the side, this mostly like goes up and down here. And kind of like wrap themselves over that aponeurosis in there. Same thing for these. That's the way that they're gonna attach in there. Same thing for those. And these will tuck under, so you don't really see those attachments because they're underneath the pelvis there. And that's what all that aponeurosis is what creates this space in between your abs. So we'll go ahead, draw that in there. Mm-hmm. I need a new coloring pencil. I actually got a whole coloring pencil set for Christmas. My best friend is the GOAT. Steven, if you're watching this, I love you, man. Let's get that going. Wrap those guys around. Yay. All right, so for the direction of the pelvis, or not the pelvis, the pectoralis. Okay, that's good. This one's a little tricky because it's not as one note as the other muscles we just went over. Is that it has multiple attachments here, one direction here, and then one direction here, and then another here. So the important thing to remember here are the insertion points and the major attachment points. And the major attachment points are the clavicular and the sternal here. So everything from these 2 points will go all the way into 1 point here, including the attachment here. So what does that mean, right? If I start here, I still have the same endpoint as if I started here. So everything follows that flow. It's like a wormhole right in here in this insertion point. It doesn't matter where it comes from out here. It's all going to end up right in that little wormhole. So everything will follow that flow. And that's the important thing to remember. Muscles will follow the direction of their insertion and their attachments. Same thing here. Follows that flow all the way around. The same thing for the deltoids too. Easy day, right? Easy day. Yeah, look at that. Look at that flow. Mark the boundary a little bit better. My cat's creating some ruckus out there. I think it's really funny how cats will just forget how to walk when they get any kind of like apparel on them. That both my cats who have cones right now, they they just like forgot how to walk for a moment. And so the deltoid attaches up here and here, but they all these fibers follow the same flow. Just like that. Just like that. And the reason this comes out here is because it's wrapping over the shoulder there, over the acromion process. Same thing here. That's where that humerus attaches. That's the acromion process there. And then it wraps out and around, and then it tucks itself into that insertion point. Same thing here. I'm just gonna mark the separation of the heads a little bit better. All right. And that's your torso there. So just a quick little review. First off, you have your deltoid. And that covers this part here, that whole shoulder. And the deltoid will attach itself to the far third of the clavicle. And at the top, it'll wrap itself over and around that connection point for the shoulder, and insert itself to the humerus on the outside edge. And that goes in between that bicep muscle and the tricep that meet on the side of the arm. This here is your clavicle, and that clavicle is the attachment point for the clavicular head of the pectoralis. And we're going to go ahead and label that. Let's go ahead and erase this here. Pectoralis. And this part in here specifically is the sternal head. And this part is the clavicular head of the pectoralis. You have these serratus muscles, and they attach themselves to the front of the rib cage, and on the back they'll attach themselves to the inside of the scapula. Now your obliques attach themselves from the back and wrap themselves around to the front. Obliques. And all of these abs in here are known as your rectus abdominis. And they sit over that aponeurosis that is created by the obliques coming around the front of the torso. And remember, the top of those abs will tuck underneath the pectoralis and attach themselves to a rib up there. All right. Also, just a quick reminder, these acromions can mark the proportions of your rib cage. Your rib cage usually ends like right around here, because this is where the sternal arch is, and the arch will come down, and like the bottom of your ribs is somewhere around here, like halfway down your torso. But this marks a box, and you can use the anatomical landmarks such as your acromion process to mark proportions of your box, of your ribs. And there's a belly button in here somewhere that can also give you a landmarker. It's not as reliable, but it is something you can use sometimes. Same thing with your pelvis in here. All right, that's gonna conclude our anatomy tutorial today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. Again, my name is Anthony. I am an artist, currently in school at Studio Incaminati in Philly, Pennsylvania. And I hope you had a good time. If you stuck around, thank you. I appreciate you. I love you. Have a great day.